We live. Real Sports Fan Podcast back for another one, another Monday, April the 20th. Got family in here with me today because, what's going on? Go ahead and introduce yourself. I know most of them know you, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm JoAnne Brice, his cousin. Just coming through, having to sit down and talk about mental health today.
That's right. We're going to chop it up a little bit, get into a few things. First and foremost, again, appreciate everybody supporting, especially last week's show. For the ones that don't know, we talked a lot about mental illness and mental health last week. Going to be doing the same again today. So let a person know that we online. What's up, boo? Share, comment, like, all that good stuff. We're going to get into it in a little bit. I do want to touch on last night. I know everybody last night looked at the Chicago Bulls documentary. A lot of people calling it the Michael Jordan documentary, but it's actually the Chicago Bulls documentary about the Last Dance, about the 97-98 season. And first episode, they talked a lot about young Mike and hitting the shot at Carolina and going to the Bulls, getting drafted, and playing against the Celtics early on and all that good stuff. And then got into a lot about Scottie, and by close, Pippen's my favorite player of all time. So started getting into a lot about Scottie and him being underpaid and his contract, which of course I knew about that. But also about Jerry Krause and just the discontent that they had even with Jerry Krause as well. So I'm going to be doing a podcast after this is all done strictly about The Last Dance. I'm not going to get a lot into it a lot on these weeks, but be looking out for that because I'm going to do a whole podcast on The Last Dance. But furthermore, we're going to go ahead and get into a little bit more about mental health and about a lot of things. Me and Cuz, we talked actually a while ago about getting together, and then recently, we commented about trying to get together and talk about mental health and about her story, because she's got a awesome story that I don't even know all of. I'm still finding out, even as we sat down, more and more and different things like that. So this book here, which I did put on Facebook earlier, The Voice Behind Mental Illness by Vanessa D. Abram. I'm going to ask you a little bit about how you got into this and all that, but she has a chapter in this book that's very good, and I'm going to share a little bit about this chapter and about the different things in it. But first and foremost, just tell the audience a little bit about how you came about, getting the chapter in this book.
Okay, I met Vanessa through someone else, and she knew that I was struggling and trying to deal with and address my mental health issues. And one of the things that I shared with her was that writing really gives me a bigger release and calms me down a little bit, and it gives me a chance to organize and operate a little better once I see it written down on paper. So she invited me to write a chapter in this series, and I think it's the series 3. She just released series 5 today, I think.
Oh, okay.
So she's really making a big impact around the world with helping people share their stories to overcome dealing with mental health, and just to avoid the big secret or the stigma of it, because I think that's what causes a lot of the problems. People don't want to talk about it. Like it's just like a common cold. It's just a sickness in your brain, and if you don't deal with it, it just gets bigger and bigger and explodes.
And that's very true. And I know it was a point at the end of the chapter we even talked about, if you try to find someone to talk to, a counselor or a psychiatrist or somebody like that, and it's not for you, try to get somebody else.
Yeah, don't just get up on it.
Sometimes it doesn't work that first time, so we like, it's automatically, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
When maybe, like you said, it's not the right person for you, So sometimes you gotta search around. So it's like when we try to get a car or something like that, we don't always just get the first thing we see, the first car, or we test drive and that all that good stuff, and if it doesn't work out, but that's a good point, what you were saying, search around, but
even with
talking is important.
Even with when I first started therapy, my therapist, she was really good. She was really good with giving me paperwork and different methods to calm myself down and to research things. But something happened that was more intense, and her answer was for me to actually, the man who killed my mom sent me a letter. And her answer for that was just to throw it in the trash and make like he never got it. But that's not my personality,
Gotcha.
and I'm confrontational, and until I deal with it, it's gonna eat at me.
Yeah.
So I had to end up getting another therapist, not because I didn't like her, but just because she could not deal with the weight of what I was dealing with now.
Got you. That makes
So
sense.
sometimes even if you like your therapist, they can't always deal with certain life issues if they haven't really had any type of experience, even remotely close.
That's a good point, because everybody's been through different things, so a lot of times when you walk the same journey, close to it as someone else walked to, you can better relate to that person.
Yes.
And I'm glad you said that, because the title you even have in this book is "I've Decided to Talk About It." So even with that, because the first thing you said was writing helps you get things out. You even talked about here about crying, which is a healing mechanism, different things like that. So what made you, I guess, in a cliche way, I ask you, what made you decide to talk about this in this book? And this is what I mean is starting off, the death of your mom. We talked a little bit about it earlier. I think it's been 30 years coming up September. 35, excuse me, 35, yeah, because my birthday's tomorrow.
No, you was reading about it.
And I'm gonna be 35 tomorrow, 1985, so it'd be 35 years in September. So just talk a little bit about just that experience, that day, if you want that experience, or if you just want to get into how you've been coping with just losing your mom. We'll get into obviously what's happened, but just with that long.
Like that totally stopped.
Gotcha.
And like nobody came around. My grandmother took us, which I'm grateful for, because it was me and my sister, and we could have been separated. When my grandmother
13,
took us,
she was 9.
yes, my grandmother took us, but she was grieving too. She had lost her daughter. And at that time, in our culture, just pray about it and it'll work itself out. But faith without works is dead. They missed that scripture.
Missed that part, yeah.
So you really have to, and then just growing up, I turned to people and different things, trying to cope, trying to fill that void. And then once I became grown, then I became a mother to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
But then, and all of that has come from trying not to deal with my internal hurt that I was still hurting from. So really, I really started digging in that and so I started therapy in 2014.
Okay.
And by the time I was getting ready to get out of it, because I thought that I was good, that's when I got the letter from Herbert. And it sent me back, deeper and darker. And the whole time, my first therapist told me that she couldn't understand how I could deal with, because I forgave him 13 years ago. So she said she didn't understand. She knew that I forgave him, but she couldn't understand how I could forgive him, but I still hadn't dealt with my mother's death.
And this is the counselor.
My first one.
Okay.
And when she said that, it just didn't make any sense to me. But then when I got that letter from him, I realized that she knew exactly what she was talking about. She couldn't get me past that point, but it was a reality. I really had not dealt with it. And then once he sent it, I went through all the channels and I didn't get no help or assistance here locally. So I ended up having to go to the Attorney General, because I wanted to have a sit down at a table just like I am with you, with him, to find out, why are you still antagonizing me? Leave me alone.
Right.
And it's sad to say that, it's no way I could even be angry with him, because he's really hurting, and he's really, in times during the conversation, it was that my mom was still alive.
Really?
Yeah. So, I went back into intense therapy because I needed to get in a place of peace within myself with it. And then that's what made me start to really I know that there's a lot of little girls just like me, and it's a lot of little boys just like him. So not dealing with the mental illness onset early will leave room for the dysfunction to continue.
Now say that part again right there. That's important. That's important though. Seriously, that's important. Say that again.
It opens up space for dysfunction if you don't get the mental health piece taken care of early.
Mhm.
And so everybody, you know, in our culture, say, oh, they just like that. They've always been like that.
Yeah, we said they quit.
Yeah, but until somebody address it and try to find out what's the fundamental issue and how do you fix that, because then that'll deal with the addiction, the dysfunction, the abuse of yourself or abusing other people. But just letting it go, it just continues the cycle.
You're talking real good because, man, you're taking a lot of places. This is good because because when you said that about she's always been this way or he's always been this way, or sometimes it was like his mom was that way, her dad was that way, little cousin Cookie was that way, you know, and I say all that to say people can change, and that takes me to one thing you talking about your book as far as even generational curses.
Yes.
Sometimes we let the generational things continue to go on from generation to generation because we've always been told that it's not going to change, that nothing can be done, you know. But we know that we serve a master that it can change, you know. But like I said, it's up to us to take the responsibility and what we need to do to stop it from going down into your kids, then to their kids, and then it's just a trickling effect.
Yeah, because that's how it started. My grandmother, my mother's mother, watched her dad beat her mom, and then my mom and her parents, they fought all the time.
Okay.
So, and then Herbert, the man who kept my mom, his mom and his parents fought all the time. So when my mom and him got together, that was normal for them. That was how they loved because that was what they were coaching. That's what they saw. And it didn't make the love, I mean, it was dysfunctional love, but that was what they knew, and that was what they knew how.
Right. And you know, it's something because a lot of times, and me and Corey were talking about this last week, is that sometimes we wonder why people are maybe in a certain relationship, a certain predicament, why they are like they are. But a lot of times it's what they seen when they were kids, or what they were in when they were kids, different things like that. So just like you were saying with seeing, you know, abuse and different things like that, you know, with her, for her and for him. So just going back just a little bit as far as, would you say, because I know you said you started 2014 with therapy, would you say that if you could have done things differently, that you, and maybe y'all did, if I'm wrong, but you and your sister should have talked to someone at that time?
Day one. From the beginning. And even not doing that, it caused a real big separation in me and my sister's relationship.
How so is this one? I mean, you gotta be.
Because she has her own hurts, I have my own hurts, we both grieving, so she in her room, I'm in my room, and then it allowed for separation to come in. And then as I got older, you know, as we got older, my way of fixing it was just to get out of that house. I felt like the house, it just was a bad experience, so I just didn't want to be in the house anymore. But at that age, I didn't realize that me leaving that house made my sister feel like I was leaving her too.
Okay.
And I didn't know that until probably 3 years ago.
Wow, really? Okay.
And like now we're in the midst of, you know, mediation and all that because we want a healthy relationship, but we both just have so much internal stuff that we need to, you know, go about it a different way.
It's bigger at this point than you two just sit down amongst yourselves
Screaming and hollering at each
trying
other.
to, because that's what I got you. Okay, and that's a great point because I've seen a situation of something similar to that, to where you thinking, if I just got the house, problem's gonna be good. You know, I ain't gotta, you know, I'm looking at these walls and what's went on, different things like that. Cause I know even there was a part in the chat where we even talked about, you know, you could hear the screams and the noises and you know, your mom being thrown against the wall, you know, just different things like that. So you thinking like, hey, I gotta get up out of here. But your sister on the other hand, who's a little younger, like I said, she's coping with it differently. You know, so you both are coping with it differently, but you both at the same time are trying to come to a point where you both can deal with it. Because that's I mean, at 13 and at 9, and then you had to wait another year and a half, almost 2 years for, you know, trial, and you go through all these different things. So it will work out, you know, as far as that happening, and that's big of y'all to even realize in 2017, you know, that we got some issues we need to deal with, because I know she wrote a book as well, right? And then now in 2020, you know, making it happen. So, you know, I applaud y'all because there's a lot of siblings and family don't speak. They don't talk amongst each other. They don't, it's a lot of different things that people don't let go and different stuff like that. So I applaud it because people of our color normally don't want to sit down, and
it's
talk.
our way or no way.
Yeah, it's our way or the highway. You don't want to do that. Go ahead.
And you know what's so funny about it? A lot of times we're mad and holding grudges and so frustrated with somebody about something that they did. And one, they don't even know that they did it.
Don't even know they did it.
And
You ain't
two,
told me none of that.
it wasn't their intention to hurt you. And three, you don't know what went on with them prior to their relationship with you that made them make this decision this type of way. So communication is a lost.
It's a lost art.
It's art, yeah,
it is.
and within us.
Yeah.
And then when people are communicating, a lot of times they're communicating out of malice and then say, well, that's not the type of person I am, but I just wanted to tell you. And I have been that person. I have been sharp-tongued, I have been direct, and that's a lot of reason why I get a lot of flack. But now I'm understanding, in my training and because I want to be of a help, I'm understanding that you have to take a lot of things when you're dealing with people into consideration.
Yeah, because, and that's a good point, because you don't know day to day, week by week, even bring it down further, hour by hour, what that person going through, what you going through. Just like the day before we met, I don't know how your day been before me. I don't know, you don't know how my day, but when we come together, just like with anything, they tell us at the church, leave whatever on the outside, when you come in. And it's the same thing with people. Like, we have to realize that just as people that, they might have an attitude, but the attitude ain't because of you. Or just like you were saying, sometimes we got a problem with people and we never told them what the problem was. We go about our business day to day, and you walk by me, or I walk by you, or you roll your eyes, and we won't talk, but we don't know what's going on. So I guess the issue of, even with mental illness now is, why don't we even want to talk to each other? Why don't we want to get down to the bottom of even stuff like that?
Because you have to be accountable for it. You have to be accountable, and you have to take some type of step towards getting it done. And everybody's gonna look at you like, oh, you can't cope, you can't handle. But in reality, I'm not coping and handling now.
Right. I'm not.
I might make it look good, but I'm not coping and handling now. And then one day, by me not coping and handling now, it could be just one simple thing. Somebody dropped something in front of me and I tripped. And that could just go, and they're like, oh, she's so crazy. All they did was drop the thing, but you don't know all the other stuff that led up to that.
Yeah. A lot of things are, I tell people all the time, it's a build-up of things. Like, you see somebody go off or explode, it's because all those little things, and then it led up to, when I used to be the same way when I was younger. Something make me mad, and it might be something small, but if we don't talk about it, we let it build up, whether it's a friendship, relationship, something happened on the job, something happened at school, whatever the case may be. And that's why it's important, even for kids and adults, if something's going on, something on your mind, we gotta talk to people, because, again, especially with kids and with bullying and being called this at school, or they ain't got the cool clothes, this and the third, and then next thing you know, somebody committed suicide, stuff like that. And that's what we wanna help prevent, in these discussions that we're having.
Even with that, because so many kids don't have a voice. You do what I say, don't do as I do, don't nobody want to hear that.
My house.
Yeah, so the kids don't feel comfortable talking to their parents about these things that are going on, or even if they're hearing voices, or even if something don't feel right churning inside of them, like that, oh, you crazy, don't worry about that. When the reality is, it is really something wrong, and I'm crying out, and I'm trying to tell you, and you making me feel worse about trying to tell you.
Now I wish I didn't say nothing.
Right.
Because you make me feel like I'm crazy.
So then the rebellion comes. So then the disconnect comes. And then everybody, oh, I don't know what's wrong with them. They just crazy. They need to help. They need to go do this. But what are you doing about it besides antagonizing your own kids yourself?
Great point. Because that's exactly, you flowed just how Corey flowed last week. Because one thing he said is that, when he was hearing voices, like I said, he couldn't tell this person, that person. So like I said, you can't always tell mom or dad. You can't always tell who's closer to you. And then, like I said, sometimes, and we know how, I just say, black families are. It is my house, it's my rules. You better not even say nothing. But sometimes you gotta have that conversation. As a, you know, as a child gets older, you know, I ain't talking about, even a 5 or 6-year-old. But if they have a need, I tell my daughter all the time, she'll be 5 this year. If you want something, honey, let me know. Cause sometimes, you know, she's like, well, I know, she call me Papa. I know Papa gonna say no, but she'll go ask Mom. No, ask me first, because I don't want you to look at me like you can't never talk to me.
Right.
So I need to. So that's why we had to lay that foundation even now, so that way when she get 15, that she just ain't always want a mom. If dad there, she's like, I'm away from Mom, but you might get away from Mom. I might gotta talk to Dad, you know. So it's important. It's important.
It's very important for them to feel comfortable talking to their parents.
It's important. Jeremiah 29:11, powerful. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans for hope and for a future. Just talk about a little bit about what that scripture means to you, and why you put it in the chapter.
Because that scripture means to me that because your mother was killed, that didn't have anything to do with you. I didn't take anything from you. I needed her. That was used to build you stronger and to make you effective in things that I want you to do for other people. Because your marriage failed, it didn't mean that I don't love you. It just means that you didn't come to me and ask me, was you supposed to be with this man? So I destroyed that for you. Just in all things, I try to find the reasoning. I don't dwell on, because I was so miserable as a child, as an adult, I'm not going to be miserable about anything that I can control.
I like that.
And even if I can't control it, I'm not going to be miserable about it. But I'm going to find out what lesson the Lord is giving me in this, because it's not for my demise.
That's it right there. Is what can I take from this? Everything we go through, good, bad, or ugly, we should take something from it. We should take something positive from it. All these, tests and trials and tribulations, you got to take something from it. So I like how you put that. You even put in here about how a lot of times when we're down, that we do want to, lay in the dark and it's funny, just real quick, because obviously we family. So Vicky, for instance, and I've told her this, so I can share I can share with her about. But when I was younger, and to this day, I don't like a dark house. What I mean, I'm talking about in the daytime.
Who you say for Vicky?
Vicky.
Oh,
because
Doverbrook?
Doverbrook. It could be 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and it was always
2 or 3 in the morning.
It was always dark. She always had the drapes then. But then it wasn't until I got older that I realized that she was depressed a lot of the time. And when she shared her story, I think last summer, that's one of the things that she said. So even now, like even if I'm feeling, not myself, I gotta open the blinds. I gotta get some light in there. I gotta, you know what I mean? So small things like that. But you mentioned that in here, and the one thing you said was that I'm going to impact the world, and you had to kind of reassure yourself that you could do. So let me ask you this: when you lost your mom, because the one thing you just said, kind of running what I was going to say, did you feel like it was, as crazy as it sounds, your fault? As crazy as that sounds, it's crazy we can make that sound. Because I know when you were saying, before I know the plan, you were saying that it wasn't your fault or nothing like that.
Yeah, I don't.
Sometimes the enemy can make us think things like that.
At first, I thought that I was this bad individual, so I wasn't worth having a mom when I was younger.
Gotcha.
And and that carried over into me when I had my daughter, because when I had my daughter, I used to always send her to Philadelphia to her grandmother. I used to send her every other weekend and every major holiday, and sometimes she might go every weekend. It just depended, because I didn't feel like I was worthy enough to raise her. Because I didn't have a mother to raise me, so I didn't think I knew how to do it. Not with the girls.
I was
cool with the boys. I was cool with the boys. I can knuckle up for both of them. But with her, I just wanted it to be so different. I didn't want her to go through the things I went through. I didn't want her to deal. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
I really did. And then one day, it was September the 7th, 2012. Okay. My mother was killed on September the 6th.
September the 6th, yeah, that's right.
My son was born September the 7th. And that year, I totally forgot his birthday, because my mom's death used to always overshadow his birthday.
Gotcha. Right.
So the next morning when I woke up, I realized that I had missed his birthday. Man, I cried all the way across the bridge. I probably spent about $900,000 because
So
I
I
had
gotta
to
make
fix
this up.
this.
So so he never said nothing the day of. Did he say anything?
No, because he had got himself so accustomed to mommy is sad during this time.
Okay.
And so,
Wow,
and
that's powerful.
since then, I make it a point. Well, on my way to spending this money, the Lord told me, I was in the middle of the bridge, and I remember like it was yesterday. All these many years, you have not been paying attention. I gave you a gift, which was my son the day after that day, because I went in labor on my mom's death date, and I cried out to the Lord not to have him that day. And I had him the next day.
I never did.
The next morning, I had him the next morning.
Wow.
So it's a lot. It takes you through a lot of trauma. Takes you through a lot of things, and it always shows up in something else. But what you do with it will determine how it affects you. And that's how I ended up starting the New Growth support group.
Yeah, talk about it.
Because, well, one of the moms or one of the girls that was in the group, she encouraged me. But about 13 years ago, my niece was living with me, and it's always somebody living with me. And my best friend, Pam, told me that I needed to start a group. But at that time, I was like, I don't got time for these people's children. I got my own children.
I got time for that. Yeah.
So she gave me the name New Growth, and so that all things hair fall right back to it. And the purpose of it is because when I was growing up in my rut of dealing with so much stuff, it was nobody that I could talk to because one, it was a stigma on it. Two, you'll be fine, just pray about it. But I know that it's another little girl somewhere who was suffering and who is suffering that I probably could have talked to. So I wanted to open the door to allow the younger girls with mental health disabilities to sit amongst each other and talk to each other and build up their toolbox on how to get to the next step with someone who has already been through it. And right now I'm in training to make sure that I guide them the right way, but my therapist that I have now, my psychotherapist, she's coaching me in the background with the curriculum on how to run it.
Okay, good.
And just them being together and having accountability partners and being able to have a voice where they can talk, because they can't always, a lot of people don't understand this. When they hear a mental health issue, they just automatically go crazy. Even with bipolar. Bipolar has so many different degrees of it. And the bottom line is we love hard and we hurt harder. And we respond to it. That's it. It's not, and it's just that one chemical is not flowing to this block, so it can't get where it needs to go. But people try to make like it's a whole disease, and if I touch you, you're going to get it. But it's not, and it can be manageable, and you can live a successful life dealing with it if you address it the right way.
Man, you all in my notes and everything. This is good. All of my notes. I ain't even got to ask all that. Okay, so look, let's stay on New Growth. So New Growth support group. Okay. Now, and this is just for young girls?
Well, I have two guys that are going to do training so they can do guys, because we can't work with the girls and get the girls together and send them out here to the boys who are suffering. So, and then that whole, you a man, you ain't supposed to cry, I cannot stand that.
We better cry. We need to cry. Because like you said, it's a healing mechanism.
And it releases.
And it releases. And God can't pour it back in.
No.
Until he get out what shouldn't be there.
And plus, and when that space is free, that's exactly what he's going to do. Fill you up for the next encounter or the next person that you might need to be, help and support. But the group, I have one in Easton. Well, when we can get back going. I do it every Sunday at a different location. Easton, Denton, and what else? One more. Queen Anne, Graysonville. And I'll be in Kent, the fourth one. But at my dad's school. So how do they, if it's some young girls out here now or some parents that might want to refer them to, so how, once all this clears, how can they either get a hold of you or know more about? They can email New Growth, NEWGROWTH 2000 JoAnne2019@gmail. That's also the Instagram name of the page, and I also have New Growth Support Group on Facebook.
Okay, good. So y'all hear that, and we'll make sure we put that in the comments later for anyone that didn't hear that. But I appreciate that. So every Sunday, so you change locations weekly, and that's smart. I like that. I like that. And it's important. And I love what you said about we can't just deal with the girls and then they go to the boys and jacked up, and then same thing with the boys. We can't just deal with the boys. It's got to be on both sides.
Yeah.
It's got to be on both sides. You mentioned bipolar, and three of the things you said in here was about bipolar, depression, and about anxiety. We talked a little bit about depression, but the bipolar part is correct, because even when I was naive and ignorant and younger, like you said, first when you hear bipolar, now I wasn't as bad as if I touch you, I think,
Yeah.
but I know what you were saying. But you think bipolar, you think first thing you say, oh, they crazy. I mean, it's just the first thing, they bipolar. Oh, I can't be with them. But like you said, like you were saying here, it's about you loving harder, and then the response to all that. So that diagnosis, that comes from because it's a different type of diagnosis. Because when you say bipolar, like I said, if you even look it up, you might get a different definition of it. But just tell a little bit to people about how you were diagnosed with that, and then how that came about.
I was going to a regular therapist, and then I got the letter, and I was having extra thoughts, thoughts that I knew that I don't have no business thinking like this, and I can't manage around people thinking like this. So my regular therapist sent me to a psychotherapist, so that they can put me on medication so that I can get my balances back together. And what I really loved about Adonica is she didn't just give me the medicine. She gave me a DNA test to gauge my DNA against all the medicines in the world. So I know any medicine in this world, I know if I can take it or not, if it's going to work.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so once I started going to her, different things. I forgot your question.
We were talking about the bipolar definition.
Yeah, I asked her when I wrote this book. I asked her what was my diagnosis, and she told me that she didn't want to diagnose. She didn't have a diagnosis for me because when she got the referral said bipolar, depression, and anxiety. But she said after my 6th session with her, all the trauma that I had went through and all the things that I deal with, that she really don't think that I'm bipolar. She do think that I suffer from severe depression and anxiety. And but on paper from the psychologist, that was the diagnosis that she gave me. And she said if I was to diagnose you with anything, I would diagnose you with loving hard and then responding to it. Your response to it is bad when someone lets you down.
Your response from that. So did she ever put you on any sort of medication?
I still take medicine now.
Okay.
Once a day.
Okay. I'm thank you for sharing that, because it's important. Labels are important to know what is and what isn't, and then the medicine part is key, because I always say, even as a kid, kids that automatically put them on rhythm, and even on rhythm, they try to do the same thing.
Don't you?
What's that?
That's because in the black culture we don't go to therapy, so
their
primary doctor was diagnosing you and medicating you versus someone who was skilled.
The primary doctor, or sometimes even the school nurse.
Amen.
The school nurse, so there's no experience in that field. But they automatically just want to put label, and then boom. They told my grandma, when I was a kid, they told Nana, put that boy in the institution. He's crazy, running around and throwing this and doing that, but. But thank God that she was like, nah, I ain't doing that. I'm gonna pray and everything will be fine. But like you said, you don't always get it that way. Get it that way.
Right.
So, talk a little bit about, you talked about obviously, your mother not being around. Talk about, Dad for a moment, and you don't have to go into great detail, but I know that from my understanding, you didn't find out who your real dad was for quite some time. Did that play a part in? Well, I'll ask it like this: What did that play a part in as far as your life?
Running around chasing behind
you,
men, looking.
Okay. That's what I was
And it's weird because when I was younger, I was spending time with my
That you
dad.
thought was your dad.
And then I was still spending time with him, but my mother told me that that's not your father. I had to do it because when I was younger, I was in a situation and I was told that if I didn't put him on your birth certificate, that I was going to be put out and left in the street. So then I started going to, in secret, to spend time with my dad and see my dad's other side of the family and all that stuff. But then when my mom passed away, I just was taken from everybody. My grandma, she just pretty much wouldn't let anyone see us. So I really didn't start to gainfully regroup a relationship with my real dad until I was 18. But of course, because so much time had went on, you know, it wasn't good, and I felt like he owed me. So I was all big-headed, you know, I was grown then, do what I wanted, talk trash to him whenever I felt like it.
Not you.
Did what I wanted to do. When he talked, I don't know who you think you are, so you ain't been no kind of dad. I gave my dad the blues.
I bet you did.
But thank God. We serve a gracious God.
That's right. And
I just left him yesterday. It was his anniversary.
I y'all have a great relationship, man. I see it all the time. So that's great. That's great. So did you feel?
Don't think we don't still get at it.
Well, because and that's natural. Yeah, because hey, it's still dad and daughter. You know what I mean?
And I tell him,
right.
Once an adult, twice a child.
Right. That's natural. Did you have any sort of resentment towards anybody while you were younger, as you got older, who stopped you from knowing, or I didn't even say knowing, being around your real father? Like, did you look back and was just like,
I resented him.
I got you.
I resented my grandma. And then it's crazy that you asked that, because at the age of 40, I ended up resenting all of them all over again.
Really?
Yeah, because I found out my grandfather was not my grandfather.
I
Forgot
read that, yeah.
So
all in the book, y'all.
So then when I started asking questions, everybody knew.
I got you. Wow. So yeah. And I'm
And
sure.
I mean, I'm still a Brice. Don't get it
Oh
twisted.
yeah, you still a Brice. Oh yeah. And I'm sure that Grandma was probably thinking, you know, she just trying to protect you. You know, she didn't know. I'm wrong. You don't think she was thinking that though? How she was thinking, not how it should have been. So tell me, what do you think?
She's protecting herself in that secret.
I got you.
Because still right today she won't admit it, and
Really?
I have proof. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's not about that life.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, okay.
And not that and y'all know I love my grandma.
Yeah.
But I think it has to do with more of an image than anything.
How it looked and things like that. Yeah.
And I was trying to show her, man, listen, your husband was cheating. He had kids by a lady with the same name.
And we know a lot of the older saints, we call, you know, they had some deep secrets back in the day, so they just kept on going back there.
But I met all of my uncles.
Good.
I met all of my aunts, you know, on that side.
And you gotta know who your people is nowadays anyway. I mean, you don't want to date one of your people. That's what I'm saying. You don't want to date one of your people.
And you know, I grew up, you know, calling Sheima's my best friends growing up. We found out when I was 40 years old that we actually related because of that secret.
Right? Right? That's crazy. Talk a little bit. I know we talked a little bit about not holding things in, about getting things out. We talked about crime. You got a friend that's been special to you, Lisa. Just talk a little bit about, you know, how she's been there for you throughout the years, and just about your relationship. And the reason I'm bringing her into this is because, as bad as things were, it's just my assumption they could have been even worse if you didn't maybe have someone there close to you. So just talk about a little bit about, you know, the relationship, you know, with her.
Now she the one crazy.
Yeah.
When it first happened, she used to come to my house every single day after school, and I was not trying to hear that. Get away from me. And she used to sit right in the corner.
Good. That's a friend.
And she would cuss me out if I cussed her out. She said, "Whatever you want to do, that's what we're gonna do."
That's
today.
a friend.
Yeah. And she, as we got older, like a lot of things that happened, she my memory bank. Because I forget a lot of stuff still to this day, off and on right now. But I can call her and she remembers a lot. She, whatever, and still right to this day, she treats me the same way. Whenever I'm in turmoil, she'll come running. But thank God I got two of them now. Because her and Pam would get I met her after that, but Lisa was already my friend before. And like during my real bad times, she has been there, and she has never ever brought anything back up to my face. She's never judged me about any decision. Lisa can watch me steal the cookie out of the cookie jar and tell them I did not do it. She has just always been. I have been really blessed in regards to my friends, that I have the same ones.
That don't happen a lot. That's good. Yeah, that's good.
And they're a wonderful support system in everything that I deal with. And even when I'm going left, they're JoAnne, you know,
let you know.
Yeah.
That's real friends. I mean, you know, those friends are just gonna keep letting you go and do what you want to do, or just like you said, you know, she come over there, you ain't wanted there, but she ain't gonna leave because she's like, no, I know you need me here. You just went through a traumatic experience and you need someone here, so you go do what you do, but I'm gonna do what I want to do. So if those are friends, friends are gonna tell it like it is, you know. So and we need, and I just wanted her to share that because we need people like that in our lives. We ain't got friends like that, you know, that can tell us, you know, when our stuff stink, you know, that can tell us when we wrong. You know, we can't have them people that always disagree with everything we do when they know it's wrong. You know, so.
Because when we get in a bind, they're not going to be there.
That's right.
And if I get in a bind, they are going to be there. That's why they can say whatever they want to say to me without me taking. Because I know, even if it come out crazy or mean, I know there's no malice behind it. They just know what to say and how to say it to get me to understand.
Get you to understand. I want to hit on a couple more things before we wrap it up. Again, Real Sports Fan Podcast, talking about mental health. Got Big Cuz here. Come to bless us. We live at BAM. Appreciate everybody listening, comment, share, all that good stuff. How hard was it to forgive your mother's killer? Because a lot of people, they always say, and you might have said it, you know, early on, I'll never forgive them, you know, this, that, and the third, but we know that, you know, to be able to move on in life and be able to truly get free, that we have to forgive each other. We have to forgive people no matter what is as hard as it could be. So just talk a little bit about that process, and you know how it came about that you knew you had to forgive to move on.
It was unexpected, and it wasn't nothing but God, because me and my sister had one of our altercations, and it got physical this time.
Okay.
I didn't ball my fist up, but I might have smacked her this time. And that night when I went home, I was living right here in Easton on Plum Street.
Yeah.
I was like, Lord, listen, I need help to fix us. I need guidance. I need to know where all this is coming from the both of us. And like 2 o'clock that morning, I woke up and I was sitting at the computer and I was looking for his address, Herbert's address, to write him, because that's what it was. I needed to have some type of conversation on why did you do this.
So you knew what it was. You knew, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wrote him, and I think I wrote him in October or November. He didn't write back until February. He said he didn't want to write back during the holidays, but it was real convenient to send a letter around my mom's birthday. But and it really, the letter that he wrote, really, that's how I found out. I mean, it made sense with his foundation and my mom's foundation and how they ended up loving each other, and I mean how they showed each other how they loved each other. And if my mom was alive today, she would not hate him. That's just who she was.
Yeah, for sure.
And I couldn't. My kids couldn't go places. My kids couldn't do things. My best friend Pam, if it wasn't for her, they never would have ever experienced an amusement park.
Really?
I didn't take them to the grocery store because I was so scared that something was going to happen to them. That made me scared of everything in regards to them.
I got you.
So they pretty much didn't have a normal childhood. Anybody, and all their friends could come and stay. Everybody can come here. That's how I ended up to the party. And once I wrote him back, and I pretty much told him that I forgave him, and I didn't want anything to do with him, but I forgave him, and I didn't. I've never ever went to the parole board or the judges or anything. Whatever they decide and the Lord decides, that's what I was going with.
And after that was done, you felt different?
I felt a big relief. I mean, a big relief, and it explained a lot of different decisions that I made, you know, throughout the years, and choices that I made. It just, God just started uncovering and revealing a lot of stuff when I let that go. And even with him, so the letter that he sent the second time, it was still the first letter, but I could tell he had manipulated. That first letter was a letter of manipulation. The second letter was his true self. He meant to do what he did.
Is that what you were talking about in here about the spiral book you talked about? Okay.
No. That was the second one.
That was the second one.
Because
So the
he
first
wrote
one was
it.
basically manipulation.
Yes.
I got you.
Yes.
So then after that, he sent
He
the
told his
second
true
one.
self.
And he told his true self.
Yeah, but you can
okay.
tell where he had pulled out pages and stuff from the first one. I still had a copy of the first one.
Okay.
And he was angry because he went to court. He thought he was going to be able to get out.
I got you.
So he sent the second letter was his true self. Like he was intentional. He don't care. He glad he did it. It is what it is. So, and that didn't even send me in an angry place. I mean, it sent me in an angry place initially, but once I went down to the jail and actually talked to him, it's a spirit.
So you've been down to the jail.
I sat at the table just like you sitting here. Yeah.
And how was that experience?
It was interesting because one of the things that I knew from the beginning was he expected a 13-year-old girl to be sitting at the table with him. He wasn't expecting, and I really threw him off because I looked just like Mom. But he still was trying to talk to me.
I bet he was. Like you said, he looked just like your mom. So I know he was like,
But he was trying to talk to me as if I was still 13. And I had no idea about different events, and he didn't think I remembered a lot of things that I did remember. But it was interesting. I did a lot better than what I thought I was going to do. And I guess because I was so angry, because you have the audacity to attack me after I forgave you. Leave me alone.
You're still trying to attack.
And I think that's why I was so angry that I didn't hurt during that time. But now it's just like he's just a wasted vessel, because it's so much hurt and stuff inside of him that he can't live a normal, happy life.
And that just goes to show everybody. I mean, I know we've all had people that's hurt us before, and I'm sure we've been on the side of we've done hurt, but we should be able to forgive anybody. If this woman here can forgive a man that killed her mom, I mean, there's really no excuse. As hard as it was, and as hard as it could be.
But he was controlling me, because I would wake up sometime wishing he was hanging on the wall so I can burn cigarette holes. And what in the world is that going to do?
I'm sure.
But it frees you.
Yeah, I bet. So I appreciate you sharing that. So just to close a little bit, we're gonna get ready to wrap up. I was joking with Cuz earlier. I said, I know a lot of y'all got y'all clock set to hear Teddy Riley and Babyface at 8 on Instagram Live. But before we do go, you've had a lot of things in your lifetime that's happened. Obviously, we already talked about losing your mom, and I know who your real dad was early on, but you've been in accidents. We talked a little bit earlier about the surgery you had on your skull. We did talk about you also had a boyfriend that passed away as well. So just with all the things that happened, there's many, many more things that I'm sure you could tell everything. We wouldn't have time, But out of all the things that's happened, what, for people that listen out there that just need something to keep them going on this time, what makes you continue to get up, keep going, keep living each day, keep smiling?
You're always grinning.
You're always grinning. So what keeps you going, Dave? I mean, what keeps you?
If the death of my mother did not kill me, nothing else can. Nothing. I mean, just things in life. Like this prophet told me 2 months ago that I need to just stop, because I cry all the time. I cry at least once a week about something. And
but you're also still healing.
Yeah. He told me that he said, stop crying. Sometimes you just gotta laugh at life. And you do, because you can't change it. All you can do is work and wiggle around it. And if you can work and wiggle around some of the obstacles I've already been through, the next challenges are nothing. Nothing.
I guess he's like, "Hey, listen, if I can get through that, I was experienced that if I can get through that and like you said, all the other things that the devil tries to throw at you, I mean, he probably like, this ain't nothing, you better try harder.
Yeah.
This ain't nothing. So.
Yeah, and I know that, you know, I have a purpose, and it's to help people who are, that been through different type of storms like that.
Yeah.
So I have to keep myself together and keep moving.
Keep moving, keep healing, because like you said, that you have to keep healing and keep moving, because like you said, it's more people that need to hear, you know, a part of your story or certain aspects of what you've been through, not just young girls, but even young boys, you know, because on both sides of things, you know, being abused or doing abusing, you know, it's different thing, you know, so, you know, it's very important, you know, why we did this, and I appreciate you wanting to do it. We're gonna do some more stuff and get together. I know you had the thing with Vicky, touching on a lot of different things too, you know, mental health and different stuff like that. So we appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all for listening, for jumping on the live again. Share this if you can. Just telling cuz I got my YouTube page up. I got some videos on there already, but more to come. I'll be showing that link and putting that out. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in again. Real Sports Fan Podcast. Back for another week. We'll see y'all next Monday. Y'all be safe. Peace.